What's up, people? Welcome to the Gotta Game Season 3 podcast. I'm your host, Kettle the Stick. Joined with me are Nephilim 10, say hi.
Hello.
Ethan, say hi.
Hey, what's up?
And our newest production member, Ryan.
Hey!
What? Yeah. So we're here to discuss the Season 3 Gotta Games cast members. And we're doing them in duos, so we'll be going through each duo one by one and talking about them. So
Let's talk
let's
about
get
the draft first.
yeah.
So, what do you guys think of Josh going first?
I mean, Josh is already one of the most physically gifted people on the cast. He really didn't need to go first. But, I'm glad he got Josef and not someone we all probably would have expected him to choose had the duos not been blinded, had they not been able to see who they could pick.
Well,
Right.
I'm looking at our rankings. We all did rankings, 1 through 11 of, I guess, where we think they stand power-wise. And Josh and Josef was every single one of our number ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he's probably the best competitor on the veteran side, and he got first pick and got the best performing rookie, it's looking good for him, for sure.
I do think, despite all the trials, it doesn't really give an accurate perception of things because most of them are obvious and then it's a combat and then it's luck. So, we don't really know how good Josef is going to be, but, it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, Josh didn't get the most, rankings from the veteran. People know that he's dangerous, but in this kind of format, it's not really one where you can take shots at people.
Well, not even just that, but he has a lot of friends in the cast too.
Oh, definitely.
He does have his equal share of enemies, but definitely has connections for sure.
Sharpie, you played with Josh. What do you think?
Yeah. I played with Josh twice, actually. The first season, he didn't win because I won. And then the second season, he won because I lost. Anyways. No, Josh is, probably the strongest physical player, just in general. And he has a strong social game, too, because he does, exist in a lot of communities on Roblox and Discord and stuff. So he knows a bunch of these people, and, he's played long terms with other ones, like most of these people before. So, yeah, I'm not worried about him socially or anything. It's just his strategic chops that I do worry about, because I feel like a lot of the time I have to keep him in check if we're playing a game together. But
Because
he
he'll
doesn't
just
have me
threaten
this
people.
time. Yeah, he spent a lot of season 1 and part of season 2 threatening Blake specifically, who I guess we'll get to in the future.
Kind of
the
iconic, TBH.
podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean, I'm happy for Josef. Hopefully he does well. He's a rookie. He talks on call. I love people that talk on call. I don't know. But yeah. Neff.
yeah, well, I think that Josh is going to have to compete against another tryhard named Noah Condon, who is with Caleb. And I think we didn't average out all of our rankings, but it looks like if we did, they would be number 2 collectively. And I think that's because of Noah, kind of. Nolan, do you want to explain?
Ethan can back me up on this. He's seen Noah play. I've seen Noah play. We both played with him before. He is one of the most competitive people in terms of putting an effort and trying to win on all three fronts of strategic, physical, and social. I mean, his strategic methods at sometimes can be a little bit out there, and he can be a troll at sometimes, but not in a way where he's personally attacking people, but more so his game moves are kind of trollish. And I think having Caleb with a partner is someone who's very social. I think maybe the personalities may clash a bit, just based off what we've seen so far. But I know Noah is going to put a lot of work into this game. He's going to try. He's pretty decent at some things, and I just know when the daily is announced, he's going to be practicing. So I think they're going to be really strong, and I think they also have a great social game. Caleb got the most amount of points from the veterans, so it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, Noah is going to give it his all. I mean, we've already seen his confessionals and how long they are and how detailed they are, and he's definitely gonna put a lot of work into this and is going to try and win. Noah's always been like that, and this is just nothing's really changed since back in the days. So I don't know. I have high hopes for him, and the fact that he's with Caleb, I think, actually balances that team out really nicely. Caleb is very social, and he's also strong, but I think that the fact that they kind of cover all, I guess, areas where people can be weak, I expect them to do very well.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know who Noah is at all, so I won't talk about him, but you guys speak really highly of him, so I expect a lot.
I don't actually know him very well either, but
But I do know Caleb pretty well, and playing with him last season was really fun. Neither one of us like betrayed each other, in my experience. So I feel like Caleb's a pretty like honest player, and also like just a really likable person overall. So I do, I am looking forward to seeing this partnership because I know Caleb isn't technically the strongest like Roblox player, but he's a really smart player. So I'm excited to see how him and Noah do.
well, I'm excited to see how Tanner and Dani do, because in my opinion, I think Dani was the best of the newbies, even though she didn't have the highest overall score. She was the only one that basically finished Flood Escape, and she did the best in auto duels, and did pretty well in Cool Lobby too, but then in Arcade Island kind of flopped. So I think that's where her ranking suffered, but I think she is the best of the newbies, and Tanner's not bad. So I think Tanner and Dani are underestimated a bit, in my opinion. Nolan, you didn't, you ranked them third.
I put them at 3. Yeah.
I did rank them at fifth. I decided to put them at fifth because while I do think Dani is probably the best rookie, like you said, I do agree with you. I think Tanner, compared to other veterans, is very mid. Um, I think he is very good. It's just the level of competition from the veteran side is so
Strong.
it's so strong, right? So that's the reason why I put them at fifth. But I would not be surprised if you saw them in finale, but some moves probably have to be made for them to get themselves there.
I mean, in competing against Tanner, I mean, no shade to him because I do like him a lot, but in both the seasons, I wasn't threatened by him at all. He just like wasn't really performing that well on my team last season. So like I'm hoping that he does better this season, but like I don't have high expectations for him just because of last season, which is why he's low on my ranking.
I think the only reason I put them that high is because I kind of struggled to rank some of the teams like overall, and I just think if Dani is as good as we saw, I think with her and Tanner, like they balance each other out. She's one of the names I've seen in CNR. I have good vibes. I think if the random.org or like wheel or whatever is good with them, I don't think socially, if they can just get a couple of relationships in, they're never going to be towards the end of people's list or towards the top. So I think they're in a decent mid position. It's just all about not getting last.
Well, another team that I think we all kind of ranked highly, and I think it's more so because of the veteran on the team rather than the newbie, because I don't know the newbie, but Pixie and Spoony, we all put very high. This is Pixie's first season back since season 1. Does anybody know Spoony or have
I
any
actually
idea?
do.
Okay.
I've met Spoony a couple times in games, and I'm actually like when we've played together, we've gotten along really well. I don't. It was a while ago, so I don't know if like she would like remember anything, but I do remember she was a really good player, and like she's a smart, strategic person as well. And I only played a couple games with her, and I could tell that she's like pretty smart. So I'm excited about that. And I also know that she's not weak, so I really think that this pairing is gonna go well because Pixie is like a game pot, and I mean that in the nicest possible way. He's a king. He filled in for me for my tar long term, like slay.
Pixie's good at Race Around the World, and that's the first leg coming up, because I played with Race Around the World with Pixie once, and we were walking onto the mat in the finale when the game shut down. But he carried me through that game, so I think that they could be contenders to do very well in Race Around the World Leg.
Absolutely.
I actually put them, I think, lower than most people. I put them at number 6, and I honestly like really don't know much about Spoony, but when it comes to some of the rookies, like I'm above them. or like the pairs above them. It really just came down to like social connections and physical skill, I guess. So she could definitely surprise me because I don't really have any expectations for her. But I think Pixie is definitely a good partner. The only thing I think that could be in their detriment is all these dailies are late at night, and I probably should have realized that I casted quite a couple people across the Atlantic. That's my only worry. Pixie's the only vet from season 1, so there's some people he doesn't really have the connections with. He doesn't really tend to play a social game, not like one's really required this season. But he's talking more than I've seen him talk the first time, so I have high hopes.
Yeah, I put them at number 3. I put them pretty high, and Pixie is just good at freaking everything, especially Race Around the World. So I expect them to do very well. And I was actually, I think, reading some of their strategies, and they were saying how they might just spend almost all of their initial money just to taxi the first leg, just so that they don't get in last place. And I think that's pretty smart to think of. I don't know Spoony, but they did decent in the trials, and I'm sure we'll see some good things to come from them as well. Again, would not be shocked if they made finale.
All right, and with that, let's move on to Triplet and Renee. Triplet, who won last season with Josh, and Renee, who I'm not very familiar with, but maybe some of you guys are. What do you guys think?
In the first ever game I ever played on Roblox, Triplet was my partner. So I know that he's a good partner. Like, he's really caring and considerate about how his teammate thinks and feels and stuff. He also, like, works really hard. The only thing he needs is, like, someone that'll calm him down, which I did well at. I'm just kidding. But, yeah, I think that Triplet's a pretty underrated player in, like, God of Games because, I mean, he didn't necessarily seem like he was doing a lot last season, but he still won. So, like, I think that something has to be said about that. And he's not tied to Josh, like, to the hip anyways, in this one, so I'm excited to see.
I think Triplet, he's more of on the quiet side. He's busy. He has a very busy job. So I think, like, socially, sometimes you might not hear from him, at least from a production side of what is he doing. But he's definitely, like, in there. Like, he's making these connections. He's playing the game, I think physically, like, he's a solid, like, he's like a solid A contender. He's not, like, a Josh, you know what I mean, where he's gonna be, like, doing all this stuff and practicing for everything. But Trip is someone where, like, you can put him in most games and I'll be like, oh, okay, like, he can do well in. And then you have his partner Renee. For her, it's all about how much she wants to win this game and play this game. I saw her in the public VC. Some people just like to socialize and talk to people. I don't know really what. I think she's decent as a competitor. Some of the games she may recognize because she's been around for so long. But I think, it's a very, like, chill, relaxed team, I guess. So, and I put them at number 4, so I feel like that's a decent ranking. I think with their connections, they'll go far.
I think Triplet and Renee are going to do very good. Triplet, I will say I was very surprised he won last season. Kind of like how Nolan said, he can be fairly inactive, especially if he's in a really good place socially. But what he will do is he'll always be there to vote. He'll always be there to do the challenge. He might do it at, like, a very obscure time, but he does care about the game. So I do respect that. And to kind of piggyback off of what Ryan said, I am curious to see what he does when he's not directly linked to Josh. I'm sure they'll be aligned the whole season along with Jazelle. Like, those 3 teams are probably going to be a tight 3. What's really going to be successful in this format is a team that really can get to know each other well and work together.
Yeah, and I think Triplet's very capable of that. I don't know Renee personally, so I won't speak on her, but she seems like a solid contender, so.
Okay, let's move on to Vanilla and Jazelle. We talked about this team maybe working with some of the previous teams we talked about. Vanilla and Jazelle.
Can I start off? Okay. I've played with Vanilla twice now, and honestly, Vanilla is, like, one of those players who you want to trust so bad, and you, like, put effort into, like, making a relationship with them, and then you're like, I don't know if I can trust them, and then something happens, and then you're like, I can't trust them. Anyways, No, but Vanilla's a really solid like contender in physical, strategic, and social aspects. So I'm really excited to see that dynamic, especially paired with someone like Jazelle, who I'd say is also good at all three. Um, so I'm excited about that. Plus, like, I don't know, I just love watching Jazelle play games. I don't like playing games against her.
Oh, definitely.
But I like just like how she'll do anything to win, and I think like that's something that I so want to see more of in God of Games, because like even last season, like I felt like I was one of the only ones that was doing whatever it took, and so I just like want to see that passion from other players.
Right. And I'll transition to that with, I put them at number 5. I think out of most of the teams here, this is one of the teams where, like, you think the veteran has experience, they know some of the people, they're going to be running things socially. But I think it's almost even in this level because Vanilla's played a couple times. They know everyone, all the vets. But Jazelle equally, like, has these relationships with the veterans. And I think socially, at least, Giselle was the second to last pick. And I think Brody, like, Vanilla got a steal with taking Giselle at that point. Obviously, like, she didn't do that good in the trials. Where she lacks in her game, I guess, is just physically. But I think she's been like keeping up with confessionals at least before the game started, while in the trial phase, and a little bit now. And I think especially once the game like actually starts and she gets into it, if she wants to win and do good, like I think she can make that happen. And also, I think two of her two strongest allies, Josh and Triplet, are forces in the game to be reckoned with, and they're willing to put their neck out on the line for her, which is great. And like going based off of what you said, like Ryan, like Brody's one of the people that like you almost forget is in the game until they do something against you, and then you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And so I think he's definitely underrated, and maybe they could become the first. Brody could become the first 2-time winner, and they could win. Who knows?
I know Jazelle. I don't know her comp ability, but based on her trials, she did one of the poorest performances. But like you kind of mentioned, I do know Jazelle well enough that I know that she's gonna have one of the best social games. I know she's really invested, and I don't think that she's gonna be as bad in some of the challenges. I mean, some of them, I'm not sure how mobile friendly the challenges are, but there are some mobile players. I think they might do better against some of the mobile players.
Vanilla probably got the steal of the draft. I think, like, I would say Noah aside, because Noah is very good, and I will give him his credit. Jazelle, especially with the people she's playing with, she's going to be so connected. Vanilla really lucked out there because I do think Josh would have potentially made a move on Vanilla otherwise. So
Mhm.
I think that both of them are going to be in it for the long haul. I do think Brody has it in him to compete physically. I just think he needs to push Jazelle to be the best version of herself physically, and I think they'll do all right. It's just they need to not get last place when it gets down to those last few rounds, or you could potentially see them go home very close to the end of the game, I would say.
Definitely. I personally think that Vanilla is one of the best competitors on the franchise so far, being a 2-time finalist, and
Mhm.
like there are other 2-time finalists like myself. I'm just kidding, but like I just feel like of people who have actually made it to the final twice, like Vanilla has shown that they're like a total force to be reckoned with, and I just love that. And then also like Jazelle is just like so well connected, like you guys said, to like Josh and Triplet, but she also has connections to like Jelly and Tanner, which like she's definitely gonna
Mhm.
push. Like you know this girl is a game player. I'm so excited.
All right, what about Blakeinator 6000 and Cejay?
Okay, so playing the game, I'm gonna start out every segment with saying that, but I obviously have played with all the vets, so I have a little insight. Blake is not a threatening contestant, really. Just like because like his physical game isn't necessarily as good as some of the other players, which not trying to read him or anything. It's just true. But he does have a strong social game, and like Vanilla, he's also rather shifty, and I know Ethan can attest to that.
Oh yeah.
But he is like a really good person. He has a great social game, and I know like he's a super likable guy. So that definitely comes in handy for him. As for Cejay, I don't know who that is.
Well, I will say I'm pretty hyped on Cejay because originally, they said they couldn't make the day I scheduled lives for it being Thursday, and then we had someone drop out, and I was freaking out because, we didn't have that many rookie apps, so I went back and messaged them, and I was like, hey, like, is there any way you can make Thursdays? And they said, yeah, like, I'm like, great, and then we ended up, I added them to the chat, they filled out the app, we did the whole trial thing in, like, one day. I'm like, wow, this is someone that, like, wants to play the game. Like, this is great. Like, this is someone who I originally, like, didn't have on the cast, who is providing all this stuff that I'm like, wow, like, I'm happy they're here. I think Cejay and Dani definitely might have some kind of friendship, at least somewhat. Blake's been a bit inactive, but he's busy, he's older, so he's got a lot more going on. I'm happy to see how they do. I think they're, like, just on the cusp of, like, the middle tier of, like, teams, almost. I think with Blake, he's one of the most entertaining people to watch. He provides confessionals. He has a great social game. He thinks strategically to try to keep himself out of those eliminations. I think they'll do well, hopefully, and they're an underdog team that I would like to see go far.
I do agree with Ryan that Blake can be shifty. However, what I will say about him is that if he's loyal to you, he will like ride or die with you 100%. Like he's not the type of person to randomly backstab you for no reason unless he's truly not with you. But you just have to know if you are truly with him or not. People will gravitate towards him because he's a very likable and nice person. I will say, yeah, he does struggle a little bit with his physical game, but I don't know. In a game like this, you just need to not be the worst in something, and I don't know. I wouldn't say he's the worst.
Well, I will say he does have an alliance already created called the 0-2 squad with the other veterans on this season who have lost 2 eliminations. We'll get to Joey and Mikey. And on top of that, like, Blake's never going to be the first target amongst the more connected people.
I agree that, like, Blake, as opposed to some of the other vets, has, like, less of a target on his back because people aren't immediately threatened by him, like people like Josh or Pixie, which I think is an advantage for sure, because Blake is definitely not a bad competitor. He just needs to have a good end game, you know what I mean? And
right. It's tough.
I really hope that Cejay might be able to help with that, so I'm excited.
Well, another team that has a member that's in Blake's alliance, which is next kind of on most of our lists, towards the bottom here, but not quite the dead bottom, would be Jelly and Andrew.
Jelly, honestly, I don't even think Jelly's in a horrible position socially. I think he actually has a lot of people that will want to scoop him up as a number in the game. Do I think any of those people are going to hold Jelly as their number one by any means? I don't think so. But if he can always survive and keep being a number for people, if people trust him enough as a number, or just that's on their side, they're not ever going to have him at the bottom of their list. So
right.
I do think that Jelly, there's upside to Jelly. Additionally, I think Andrew is actually a really good partner for him. He seems very willing to participate and willing to, I don't know, be there for his partner. I just worry that they're going to become expendable later on.
My fear for Jelly is more so in the sense of, like, Jelly has in the past, and at least in all my experiences, he's ended up just being a number to people, which makes you expendable near the end. So, like, I couldn't see a group like Josh or like Jazelle ever, like, intending to actually take him to the end, you know? I just hope that Jelly can break that mold of, like, being just, like, a number for people like Josh. Like, I'm excited to see if that 0-2 alliance is gonna, like, actually run anything, because I think that's a really interesting group of players.
For Jelly, I think he's in a better spot socially than he is physically. I think him and Andrew are both mobile players, and, like, I think that not to shit on mobile players if you're listening to this. I know I casted a bunch of you, but, like, there could be some struggle in that aspect of, like, can they compete? Like, I think the biggest struggle for them won't be socially. I think it'll be avoiding that last place goes in, because once you get down to 6 teams, 5 teams, 4 teams left, You know, if there's still a bunch of big competitors there, it could be tough for them. That being said, like why I think Joey and Andrew are going to do good socially is because quite a few people I've noticed are in Jelly's group. Jelly hosts his own The Challenge group, and quite a few people have played his game, and he knows of them. Like I think Spoony, Cejay, Rare, Bryan, like more of these. I don't know about Cejay, but like more of these people towards the bottom of the pack, rookies. But I think if they can come together almost in a way, and one of them can get a daily win, they could do something. But I think it's going to be an uphill battle for them ultimately.
Well, that brings us to our last member of that 0-2 alliance, right? Which would be Mikey, and his partner, who is one of our Brits, Rare. Rare wasn't one of the worst competitors at all. I know he was the last one to finish his trials because of like scheduling issues being.
I'm worried.
Overseas.
Yeah, I'm worried about that too.
So yeah, that's a little concerning, but he thinks that it won't be a problem, so we'll see. Arcade Island was too laggy for him, so he didn't get anywhere in that
He has
game.
bad internet.
Yeah, so that could be a problem too. And Mikey, I mean, everybody loves Mikey. What do you think?
I actually do love Mikey. I get along with Mikey really well, and he's also like a really great competitor physically, so I'm excited about that. And also his social game I feel like has been improving in the time that I've known him, because I used to think of him as like really like shifty and kind of like untrustworthy, but like now in my point in my friendship with him, like I feel like I can trust him a lot. So like my personal connection with him is like different. I trust him a lot in games, but I don't know if that means he's trustworthy.
Mikey's very rogue. I don't want to say he's an emotional player because he definitely thinks about things, but like to date back to season 1, he lost an elimination to Patrick and just immediately, like, for no reason, like, outed his alliance. In season 2,
yeah, a little reckless.
That's so iconic.
It really is.
In season 2, I don't remember the exact circumstance, but like he kind of like basically volunteered to go in elimination when I think it was going to be Blake, if I'm not mistaken, and then he got like crushed by Brody and Word Bomb. He has to have the feeling that he can win the game for him to like play like the best strategic game almost. And I think having Rare as a partner, I think could be no offense to Rare, I don't know how they compete, but like could be a demotivating factor when you see other like big juggernaut teams. And the only other thing that worries me is like Mikey's kind of one of the more inactive people. So I'm worried like if there's any team that could possibly not show up at all for Race Around the World, with Rare being British and Mikey sometimes being busy or just not showing up, like it's this team that I could see.
I don't know. I think Mikey gets really bored easily, and when he gets bored, that's when sometimes his strategy goes a little off track. I do think he's one of the best physical competitors in the cast, though. I hope Rare does well, but just based off of how difficult it was for them to be scheduled to do the trials, it's just I feel like it's going to be really rough for Rare to make any live, I guess, games or whatever.
I don't know. I mean, we've seen him get fucked over by having a bad partner in the past. So I just I would hate to see that for Mikey again.
That leaves us with 2 teams left, and I guess let's start with Cade and Heidi. Cade was a newcomer last season. Heidi didn't do too bad in the trials. Might have some strengths that could help the team, but they were pretty low on all of our rankings. So, Nolan, would you like to say anything about Cade and Heidi?
I don't really know necessarily how bad they want it as compared to the other teams, and that's kind of why they're more so ranked low. But I don't know how bad Cade wants to play the season and necessarily win the season. And Heidi has been like kind of quiet. I haven't seen out of most of the teams here. I haven't seen either of them really put in that much effort socially, and I think physically they could easily fall into the trap of just not showing up or like being last place. Like Cade, dropped 2 draft picks because they didn't show up originally in the draft. So
Cade's an interesting player because I know that Cade is actually capable in competitions. Like we've seen it in the past. I mean, especially like winning an elimination against Eva. and stuff like that last season. So looking forward to Cade. Also, Cade is another player that is like kind of chaotic, and I kind of live for chaotic players. But in a game like this, you kind of need to like reel in the reins a little bit. I think that Cade's social game is what is a detriment to them, because I don't think that Cade is like bad at competitions, but the social game is lacking.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Cade is actually very good in physical competitions and whatnot. I actually think also Heidi is, from what I've seen, decently active in the server. So I feel like they could be a dark horse. Like they could go really far, but what is going to need to happen for them is they're going to have to get into some of these alliances and have people trust them, or else they're just going to be picked off really quickly.
Well, that brings us to the last team, and the only person who did not choose their partner, Eva, and her partner Brian, who I think had one of the lower averages on the trials,
I
and
think at
was
the
the
lowest.
last, yeah, and was the last pick. So was just put on Eva's team. What do we think about that? We all ranked them. I think we all ranked them as the lowest in our power rankings. So, who would like to elaborate on that?
I think the reason I put them last is because Eva's the type of person where if they don't like their partner, they're gonna let their partner know that they don't like them. I know that Eva's very upset about getting the least amount of names in the randomizer for the draft. And then not only that, but also getting last
Dude,
pick, a double whammy. Like that must
double
hurt to know
unlucky.
that people really don't want Eva to succeed this season, and it's definitely going to be an uphill battle for sure, especially with having Brian as a partner. I think Brian is trying so hard, and I respect the hustle. I respect him doing everything he can to salvage their game. His confessionals are very insightful. I'm rooting for them. Like I really hope they're not first boot because I feel like that would be the
Underdogs.
most predictable thing. I don't know. I do really enjoy Brian. He seems very excited to play, and I want him to get at least some of the experience. I don't want them to just get picked off super early.
My only thing is, like, I feel like Eva really struggles in the likability. I don't think that any of these vets that have played with her before, like her. So that's
Mhm.
definitely a challenge. And I honestly think that having Eva as a partner is more of a detriment than having Brian as a partner. Because Brian's going to at least put his all into it. And I don't think that
Mhm.
Eva has a good attitude.
I had to put them last because of a multitude of reasons. Socially, I don't think anyone's going to be putting their neck out on the line for them, and physically, it's just I don't think they're at the same level as some other people. But I would like them to surprise me. I love a good underdog.
That's funny.
I just think Eva needs to approach some social situations differently. But I think having, maybe getting last pick in the draft isn't really going to help change the attitude to try to like have a better social and strategic game. They think they're already screwed, possibly.
Mhm.
I wonder if that'll humble her or just piss her off.
Probably the latter.
I agree.
I agree.
Well, that's everybody that's on the season. We got through all 11 of the duos. So before we end, let's go around and I think let's say our winner predictions and our first boot predictions. So Ethan, who do you think is gonna win, and who do you think is gonna get first boot?
My winner prediction is Caleb and Noah. I'm locking that in. My first group prediction is going to be, unfortunately, Eva and Brian.
I think my winner pick is definitely going to be Pixie and Spoony. As for the first boo, definitely Eva and Brian.
Winner prediction. We're just gonna lock it in. Josh and Joseph. And first boot wise, I'm gonna go with Cade and Heidi.
I really do think Tanner and Dani could make it. So I'm gonna say Tanner and Dani as my winner pick. And for first boot, I would agree with Nolan and say Cade and Heidi. And with that, that concludes our cast assessment for Season 3 of God of Games, Stones of Survival. But before we head off, is there any last words anybody would like to say about the season, the people, anything in general?
to all the people listening to this podcast that weren't in this season. Never give up. And thank you to all the people that have supported this series.
If you were at all upset about anything I said, I tried to keep it very constructive, but prove me wrong. If you do good and I said you weren't going to, literally message me and say spits in your face because I would deserve it.
We were wrong. We were pretty wrong last time, I think.
I mean, you predicted me pretty well.
Who knows? Anything can happen. Prove us wrong. Prove us right. I don't know. From outside the God of Games production chat, we are Gods of Games Moves.
Be the good.
Be the
Love
good.
one another.
Bye.
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 See ya.